All right, in this podcast, I'm going to be providing you with information that's going to transform the timbre of your horn. Now, I teach absolute pitch. I use science. It's a proven theory now. You can actually develop it as an adult. But what I want to do is see when you play and you record right next to the bell, you're going to have a particular sound quality. And when you're using the same sound in a hall, it's going to transform and it's going to turn into something different. Now, you need to figure out how you can make your sound good up close. And when you're in the hall, all you have to do is be more deliberate in your spacing of the notes so that after you take a breath, the sound is still going to carry. So you don't want everything too legato. You don't want a mush of sound. So that you can play perfectly in time and perfectly in tune. This is not a a very musical sound, but this is what they want to know that you can do first. So I'm going to show you how you can um, enhance your chances of going from the second audition to actually winning the job. So that sound is just too perfect. All right. If you can keep a steady, slow time and make sure that each note is perfectly in tune, then you can get a job. But that's not a very musical sound. Music isn't about playing everything perfectly in tune and perfectly in time. So you wanna change the timbre of your instrument to sound like this, even without changing the space that you're creating the sound in. Now that's perfect standard pitch, but the thing is, the standardization of pitch came from World War II. They wanted to raise the frequency so that it would be naturally louder and would have an added brilliance to your sound that would intimidate all the other cultures. All right? It was really for the military bands more than the orchestras. But the thing is, I've proved that despite the Hertz tuning, you can create a bright or a dark sound. It doesn't really matter which Hertz tuning you're going to tune to. If standard 440 is where you want to hear, then that's what I'll play. But I found that you can create more colors using different Hertz tunings. So I'm gonna raise the pitch past the perceptual quarter tone. So I'm gonna raise the pitch from ooh, standard C to a ooh, an obvious C sharp in 432 hertz tuning. Now, when you can play perfectly in tune, you don't want to sound robotic, so you have to add vibrato in somewhere. Now that's a C sharp tuning, but that's C sharp in 432. So I can keep the same intonation and just play a concert B to get the C in the same tuning standard. So that's a very bright sound. How I'm getting that sound is I'm having all my tuning slides pushed in and my right hand is completely out of the bell. So you have to really master how to buzz each note in order for it to still sound light and clear and in tune. Now here it is with a dark sound. Now, if it sounds too legato, you want to add some articulation, just add some space, make it more robotic, but the acoustics are going to carry the notes. So you have to understand that the concert hall is your instrument as well. Now that's a new sound, especially on the horn. I've just never heard any other horn player play in 432. Okay, now we're going to go from the 432 and we're going to go up gradually, and you'll be able to recognize if you pull your tuner out when I play standard pitch, and then when I get to standard pitch I'll play bright and dark. So the idea of raising the pitch to 440, making it sharp to add that brilliance, you can still play it dark. Okay, and then when I go up even further, you would think that the timbre would become even brighter. Well, it can, but then again, I can still make the pitch even darker than what you heard in the lower tuning. So you can just create the sound however you want it. That defies the ideologies of the past. Now, that'll be the last time that you hear natural harmonic tuning, okay? It's just not equal temperament, all right? So that's bright and this is dark. So that was standard pitch. Now I'm going to continue to raise the pitch. Now, I particularly don't like that tuning. It was because the specific hertz frequency will provide you with a number that is not Christian. So now we've gotten all the way up to tuning to the 7th harmonic of scientific pitch. We have 448 hertz. Now, you just heard a really bright sound. Now I'm going to make it really dark. Okay, and then we're going to keep going up. Now, tuning to 452 hertz will give you your quarter tone from standard pitch. But the thing is, if you have refined absolute pitch, you can hear how ooh, that quarter tone, even though the tuner will tell you it's equally C and equally C sharp, it's actually closer in the space range of C sharp. Ooh, because absolute pitch is rooted in 432. But when you realize that and you master 432 on your instruments, then when you include the ideology of 36 tone equal temperament, it's better to be sharp than out of tune. So you just go just sharp enough for the note to be what you call it. So ooh, any higher, then it's going to be a C sharp, and that's just standard pitch. So we're going to keep going up. Now, 456 hertz tuning is an obvious B flat. The tuner will tell you that it's a B flat, but you can actually push in all your tuning slides and take your right hand out of the bell to create that tuning. And you can actually go even higher because it's right there. It's just a couple of hertz away from it being now a C sharp in 432 hertz tuning. So you see how the octave completes within our perception of how we identify the notes. So tuning to 432, you can have many, many different kinds of colors and sounds. Now, ooh, doo, 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 doo. That was, well, I sung it really dark and rich, but the way I played it on the horn was a lot brighter. So I'm going to play it on the horn, bright, and then I'm going to play it again with the same intonation, but I'm just going to play it as if I'm transposing from F sharp horn so that we get a different timbre. Now, when playing sharp, you don't want to have that kind of sound. You don't want to sound like a tube, a T-U-B-E, even though that's what the physicality of the horn is made of. It's just a tube, but you want to make it sound like a tune, T-U-N-E. Now, music isn't about being perfectly in tune. It's about how quickly you can adjust the pitch. And then when you're in this great professional setting, they're going to add some reverb and some auto-tune so that you sound like the way the movies sound like on the horn, and you can still have this kind of sound. So that's just how really good professional horn players sound up close. Well, I'm purposely sounding like that. It doesn't seem like people have really advanced the concept of sound in their personal awareness. So even though you can sound like that and use technology to make you sound like this, it's better to just be able to sound really good at first. It makes everybody's job a lot easier. All right, so here's standard pitch again. So that's what a D flat or C sharp in standard pitch sounds like. And that's obviously C. Now, the thing is, you can tune your horns even though it's actually in the setting of an F sharp horn. That's the way the horn is built. You can actually bring the pitch down quite far. You can play a concert C, and even though it's originally tuned in C sharp, you can bring it down to a B. All right, so the timbre is quite different. It's like in between an open horn sound and a stopped sound. So it's like a new sound, a new type of mute that no one's ever heard about. All right. So it's like your concept of sound is more important than an expensive mute you can put into your bell. Your concept of pitch is more important than playing everything sharp so that everyone is in tune with themselves. All right. Your concept of time shouldn't be robotic. Everything shouldn't be perfectly in time. But when you excel or rubato, the arsis should lead to thesis. So the phrasings should align in the original timing. So that's where your sense of timing comes from. Now, after you've developed your concept of time, then you can improve your concept of pitch. So add some glisses in there, add some slurs, or just make everything really precise so that you can prove that you can do it. Now, you don't want to sound like that because there's just too much attack. It's just gonna wash out the rest of the horns and the rest of the orchestra. You don't want a really loud, bad sound, but you want to be able to see. I was just playing way louder than you would ever need to in a musical setting, and you'll get a bad sound that way. So you want to back off your sound, but keep it sounding full and healthy and in tune. So, like people will tell you, oh, you sound too perfect, you're not going to get a job. Or, oh, you sound too bad, so you're not going to get a job. So I was like, I've purposely tried to sound bad several times, on several occasions. Well, not necessarily bad, but worse than I can actually play. And then I've had people tell me, "Oh, it's too precise. It's too perfect. We can't use it." So I've figured out a way to be able to sound like anything, whatever you want, bright, dark, thin, full, whatever you want, in tune, out of tune, in time, out of time, whatever you want, I can do it. All right. So that's a nice full loud sound, but how's your pianissimo? Okay, here it is. Now that's way softer than you'll ever need as well. So you want to be able to hear yourself and the other players. So you have to get everyone to balance somehow. Now, I think the best way to get everyone to actually play in unison, one sound, is to improve the intonation. You have musicians that listen to 440 hertz, and then after they tune in the musical setting, they play something closer to 446.44 hertz. So they subconsciously raise their frequency up to the Schumann resonance tuning. Now that's just subconscious. That's just because of a lack of awareness. Now, you can develop absolute pitch. The term chromatic scale, chroma, is the Greek word for color. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise that each note has its own color. Now, yes, there's been people that came before me that has talked about some of these ideas, but there really is an objective wavelength for each note. There's 12 hours on the clock, 12 notes in music, and 12 colors in science. You have your primaries, your three secondaries, and your 6 tertiaries. Now, technically, there's an infinite amount of divisions, but your C is green, your E is violet, and your A flat is red. And then you have your D at cyan, your B flat at yellow, and your F sharp at magenta. Now, magenta, science used to say that it didn't have a specific frequency, but it really does. It's found at 400 terahertz and 800 terahertz. Now, they say that we can't really see the color pink, that it doesn't exist. Now, that's just scientific ignorance. It's not real science. It's old, outdated information that doesn't come to any sort of conclusion that actually makes sense in objective reality. Now, 40 octaves lower than 400 terahertz is 363 hertz. It's an F sharp and 432 hertz tuning. So when you develop your absolute pitch beyond just being able to recognize the range of the notes, to be able to recognize if it's flat or sharper in tune, then you have to think in 36 tone equal temperament. Now 36 tones will give you your 432, your 440, and your 448. And then it goes 432, 440, 448. Now each of the 12 tones has 3 new divisions, or 2 new, 1 original, depending on where you're going to start. Now, pure tone is in 432. It's better to be sharp than out of tune, so if you're going to tune to standard, use your absolute pitch to go as high as the note will let you go without changing the color of the tone. So, ooh, that's a C, that's a green, that is sharp enough, high enough. If it was any higher, it would turn into a turquoise. Ooh, that's a pure green. It's balanced between yellow and cyan. And then you have the tertiaries, B and C sharp, lime and teal, okay? So you have different divisions. There's a difference between teal and turquoise. And it has to do with the specific hertz tuning and adding more divisions to the octave. Now, that's just absolute pitch development. Now, once you have absolute pitch, then you won't really need to defile the timbre of the music with auto-tune. So if you know where the standard is, then even if you come in slightly off, the untrained ear, if you don't have absolute pitch, you just heard bum, 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 bum. You just heard the same notes. Now, professional musicians play a lot more out of tune than I do. So if you're going to be woo, you don't want to go woo. You don't want your major sixth to be into the yellow range. If it's an A, it needs to be orange, not yellow. So put it in standard pitch. Don't put it in 442, because even though you hear that sound, you're playing 444, 446, 448 as you're playing the piece. So it's like, just listen to standard pitch and develop absolute pitch. Now, the horn is a marvelous instrument. Very marvelous. Now, what do you want to hear? Where's the music? Send it to me and I'll play it for you. Now, I've had too many orchestras not give me a chance just because I'm so good. So you're gonna give me a chance, or things aren't gonna work out for everyone. All right.